Welcome to episode 53 of the Animorphs Read Along broadcast. Today we are talking about book 46, The Deception. This book picks up right where the last book left off, and once again it's this big feeling of like change, and we're in a new era of the Animorphs and everything's different now. And in some ways this book does fulfill those promises of change, but in a lot of ways I feel like it's more symbolic than anything else. The last book ended with the Animorphs on the beach making a call to the Andalites. As we could have probably predicted, the Andalites are huge douchebags. Moving forward, the Animorphs kind of make this decision that they have to stop worrying so much about right and wrong. Now they have to worry about, in Marco's word, if something is expedient. And I think at this point in the war, when Visser One is threatening all-out violence, that this makes sense. There's quite a bit of, angsting over this though. Cassie's like, guys, we have to maintain our humanity. This is where this book is kind of, I feel like, creating sort of an inflated sense of drama and maybe more of a symbolic emotional crisis, because in reality, for most of this book, the Animorphs really weren't breaking that many of their rules. They haven't crossed any lines yet. Stealing an airplane, morphing humans, these are all things that they've done in the past and that they've come to terms with a little bit because this is for the greater good. Like Cassie gives this big speech, Jake, there's always a reason to abandon morality. We've been through this so many times. Someone's always saying, forget about right or wrong, we've got to win. But if we really look at the context of this, they haven't even come up with a plan yet. They haven't even discussed anything in explicit terms, and Cassie's resistance to this just felt kind of forced. And there's a whole lot of that in this book. But even though the execution maybe was a little sloppy, this is a huge turning point for the Animorphs, and this new sort of mantra, from now on, we take what we need, is a big deal. The single greatest problem with this book is that for some reason the author was like, this is going to be a masterclass in aircraft carriers. Not only was it wildly unrealistic that Jake and Marco, and I think even Tobias, and eventually Axe too, would know all the specific names of all of these different types of fighter jets and know their way around an aircraft carrier and know which kind of person will be doing which jobs, but it was also incredibly monotonous and boring. There's a way to write about an aircraft carrier, this really massive city out at sea, and make it really interesting, but this is not it. I was also just like lolling, in the midst of this big battle that happens. Jake's like, oh, the M16-27-5 is taking off, and it's like, dude, just say the plane. I also need to address all of the morphing into humans and the changing of clothes, especially after the war had broken out and there were like Hork-Bajir on deck, Draken beams being fired, like crazy stuff was happening. Axe was walking around in Andalite form, and then people are still bothering to be like, I gotta put on the right color uniform for this human I'm morphing. Like, no, the place has gone to chaos. I don't think anyone cares what you're wearing. But so once again, this book should have been really exciting and awesome because like the Yeerks are trying to start World War III, and that's pretty crazy. Like obviously shit just got real. There are soldiers dying and things being fired on China and like nukes. At this point, like the Yeerks have made themselves known to at least the few thousand people who have survived this aircraft carrier situation. The overall quality of this book was uneven. The dialogue in this book was also really uneven. And there were sort of these like pseudo-philosophical quotes just like thrown in sometimes, mixed in with occasional moments of like really good dialogue. Like Jake saying, things are different now, we take what we need. That was a powerful moment. I was like, damn. But then you also have these things where like Axe goes, war is irrational, though it is sometimes necessary. You tried, but no. There's sort of this very, very, very long battle in this book on the aircraft carrier, chaos, things happening, people running around, Visser's being captured. Eventually this all ends with Axe deciding that Visser 2 is only going to call off the nukes if he thinks that the Yeerks are threatened in like mass numbers, aka all the Yeerks at the Yeerk pool. Now, unlike what happened in book 43 when they were just going to target the Yeerk pool itself, Axe is talking about nuking the entire town. Jake's immediately like, no way, we're not doing that. And Axe kind of goes over his head and is supported by Rachel, Marco, and Tobias in pursuing this. They kind of get Cassie and Jake out of the way, and then the other four go about this. I honestly don't know why Jake would be so opposed to just using the nuke as a threat. I mean, obviously the goal here is to get the Visser to call off the nukes in China. And I mean, like, I'm sorry, but it's a good plan. World War III has to be stopped, Jake. It has to be. I also need to address that there's this part where Axe is thinking about like his future on the Andalite homeworld, and he's like, you know, maybe I'll build a life with Estrid. And I'm like, dude, you met her once. Like, calm down. Don't propose just yet. So yeah, I didn't hate this book or anything. I thought it was a pretty good book, but just like not nearly as good as it could have been or should have been considering the subject matter. So yes, those are all my thoughts about Animorphs number 46, The Deception. The next book is book number 47, The Resistance. If you want to keep up with this read along in the last few weeks of its life, follow me on Twitter or subscribe to this channel, and I will see you on Monday.